listeners, a warm welcome back to Story and More. This is your host Indu. It's lovely to have you all back here to listen to our stories. Today we have a short story for you. It's called Strangers in Dalhousie. It was published in 2022. It's about a single woman traveling up north, her experiences and her chance meeting with an Englishman in a place called Dalhousie. Dalhousie is a beautiful hill station in Himachal Pradesh. And don't forget to leave your feedback. I would love to hear from you. Stay tuned and listen to Strangers in Dalhousie. A cold, gentle breeze caressed her face as she padded up the street with much effort. It was a climb. She wished she had packed lighter. With heavy rucksack slung across her shoulders, she glanced at a map in her hand. Temptation to hitch a ride on a scooter or car passing by was very strong, but she was a stranger in town. Just a few more minutes away, she muttered. She walked through the deserted roads of a picturesque Dalhousie, taking in the winter morning. Cluster of cedar and pine trees decorated her pathway, and to give her company, a veil of mist. The hustle bustle was a lifeline living in a big city. Quietness was unusual and more often eerie. At a distance, through the mist, a granite wall loomed and a large board came into view at the entrance of an old Victorian building. Youth hostel. Not a human in sight. Did she book the right place, she wondered, as she climbed the stairs to the reservation desk, where a man in his mid-20s sat. He smiled politely as she walked in. I have a booking for 2 nights. Aisha, is it? You got that right, she smiled. She filled in the details in the register as he verified her identification. Dinner will be served at 8 p.m. and breakfast at 7 a.m. Have a pleasant stay, said the man. Ram Singh, please take ma'am to her room, he ordered. Ram Singh, clad in white kurta pajama and light brown half-sleeved sweater, led her through the stairs into a narrow hallway. Why is the hostel so silent? Aren't people staying here? She asked. Holiday season? Residents are on vacation. We do have some tourists staying over, but they're out sightseeing. Are there any women staying here? She asked. No. Aisha wondered how safe it would be. She had heard scary stories from other women travelers. Best not to travel alone up north, her friend had warned. Ram Singh opened the door of the dormitory and showed her the common bath and the bunker. The beds were made except hers, and a pair of boxer shorts lay on one of the beds. Is it a mixed dormitory? She asked, pointing at the boxer shorts with a tinge of alarm. No, that was probably left behind by the earlier tourist or residents, he said, and removed it. Is anyone else sharing this room? Aisha had too many questions circling her mind. The silence at the hostel was intimidating. Sensing her anxiety, Ram Singh said, No, don't worry, ma'am. You're safe here. If you need anything, I will be downstairs. I'm just a call away. Thank you, she said as he left. Ram Singh's words, music to her ears, momentarily at the least. She dropped the rucksack on the ground and stretched herself before plopping on the bed. She wished to rest after the short, tiring trip from McLeodganj, but the dormitory wasn't enticing enough. There was something not right about the room. The thick red curtains covering the large windows let little light in. Maybe it is me and not the room, she thought. Half her life she spent in dormitories, sharing rooms. She grew up in a convent boarding school from the age of 12 and spent the later years in a women's hostel till she could get a place of her own. Aisha freshened up and soon trotted to the places she had on her list, spots she could reach by foot. There was no mode of transport available apart from the infrequent public bus service. Taking another bus that day was the last thing on her mind. Morning changed to noon, and before she knew, the sun was giving way to darkness. The days are short in winter. This should be least of your worries. Our snowy mountains will keep you safe. Didn't I tell you not to worry about leaving your luggage in the bus at the food stall? It was where you left, wasn't it? This is Himachal. People are nice and helpful. A fellow local traveler in the bus had told her with a hint of pride. She smiled as the statement crossed her mind. Yes, people are indeed nice and helpful, she whispered to the mountains. Aisha glanced at her wristwatch. Still a few hours left for dinner. The chicken kati roll she ate for lunch at the chalk was too little to appease her rumbling stomach. On her way, she found packets of chips hanging at a kirana shop. It was irresistible. A lion would question his mighty roar if it were to hear her stomach's crave and growl. She gave in to the temptation. Munching on the chips and sipping water she lugged from the shop, Aisha dawdled back to the hostel before it turned dark. She entered the gate and stood staring at the entrance to the hostel. Not so soon, dormitory, she mumbled. Her sore feet craved for rest. The large granite protective walls of the hostel, overlooking the road, seemed a perfect place to perch. On the wall she sat with her legs stretched, reminiscing her tour through Himachal and watching people occasionally pass by. To her, the locals didn't need a gymnasium. They could walk and climb with such ease. She remembered how an elderly man had a hearty laugh watching her huff and puff at Shimla, climbing up the steep slope to Jaku temple. He must have been twice her age, but quicker to walk up, the slope a flat terrain to him. Seeing Aisha smile to herself, the man from the reservation desk waved. "It is getting chilly. Maybe you should get inside," he said. "I'm okay. Are you leaving for the day?" she asked, noticing him approach a motorbike parked close to the wall she sat. "Yes, I live about 15 kilometers from here. It is a long ride back home. See you tomorrow," he said. "About that?" she paused. "I may leave tomorrow." "Are you inconvenienced at the hostel for some reason? What makes you want to leave earlier than planned?" he asked. "Not at all. I do find the hostel and the silence a bit eerie, but it is not that. 2 nights in the dormitory feels long. Maybe if I had a single room to myself, I would have stayed longer. And I figure one needs transport to go further and explore the hills. I didn't consider that when I booked the accommodation. I will visit another time to trek and will remember to get a vehicle," she said. "I hear you. Tourists who stay here mostly visit in groups and they have their own vehicles or hire one." Dalhousie is a beautiful place. I wish I could show you around, but my work hours won't permit it, he said. Thanks for the offer. Say I decide to check out in the morning. Do I need to do anything for cancellation? She asked. My booking is for 2 nights. You need to check out when you leave, that's about it. You don't have to pay for the extra night you booked, he assured. Thanks. And if I don't see you in the morning, goodbye, she said. The man scooted off on his motorbike, and Aisha continued to sit outside. Evening was chilly and dark. The eerie silence started to creep up on her again. The hostel, with the small flickering light at the entrance, gave a haunted ambience. She wasn't sure if it was a paranormal phenomenon or an uninvited human being that she feared the most. She brushed aside the thought and convinced herself to head back to the dormitory. It was getting colder outside. Aisha weighed each step as she climbed the stairs and walked through the hallway. None of the other places she stayed at during her trip gave her the creeps that she felt here. The door of the dormitory that she left open in the morning, on her way out, was now shut. She stood outside for a few minutes. A slight push to the door. It creaked open slowly. It was dark inside. She took a deep breath, waited a moment before switching on her mobile torch. The pounding of a heart audible would wake the neighborhood. She dragged herself in and turned on the light switch next to the door. Everything was as she left in the morning, but somebody had closed the door. Who could it be? She lay down on the bed and promptly dozed off. She woke up startled, hearing a thud. The light was on. Did I not shut it off? She mumbled. She moved cautiously to the door and peeped out. She heard a door slam at the corner, and then a chorus followed. Thank goodness the tourists are back, she said aloud. Asha breathed a sigh of relief. She wasn't alone anymore. She turned the light switch on and off a few times and convinced herself, I probably left it on and slept. It couldn't have turned on by itself. By 8 p.m., as instructed, she reached the dinner hall. The room was filled with young men chattering and enjoying a hearty meal. She was the only woman. She chose a table tucked away in a corner for a quiet meal amidst the chatter, armed with a travel map to ascertain her next pit stop. Suddenly, she heard a male voice with a British accent. Hi there, may I join you? He asked. She glanced up. A tall Caucasian man with auburn, wavy hair, hazel eyes and aquiline nose stood waiting. Sure, it isn't reserved, she said, pointing to the chair across her. I didn't see you here yesterday, he said, pulling the chair back to seat himself. He carefully placed the plate on the table. How could you, when I wasn't here? I came in this morning, she giggled. Their conversation meandered from cities they had travelled to local cuisine and culture. Both engrossed in conversation, didn't realize how the hours passed. The dinner canteen was closing. Tonight is my last night at Dalhousie, he said, gazing deep into her eyes. Is it? I have another night booked here, but I may want to leave tomorrow. I think I will travel to Punjab, she said, wondering if she sensed a longing in her newly met companion to spend more time with her. Why don't you then take the early morning bus to Pathankot. That is a hub. You can pick your destination at Punjab. I'm taking that bus tomorrow." Aisha was quick to say, "Sounds good." She liked his company. He had travelled to over 70 countries and she was keen to hear more. She packed up early next morning and checkout was quick. The bus was set to leave at 6:30 a.m. He was already standing at the doorway. "Hey, good morning. I can see you're leaving today too," he said. "Yes, I am." "Where do I have to go to get the bus?" she asked. "Come along," he said. They had not introduced themselves yet, though they spent hours conversing at the dinner table. "By the way, I'm Christian. Just the name, not by religion. I'm an atheist," he said. "I'm Aisha, a Hindu and an atheist," she said. They laughed. The bus arrived. They rushed and found a seat next to each other. "It is not common to see a solo female Indian traveller up north in India," he said. "I hear so, but I like travelling solo," Aisha said, making herself comfortable for the long ride. "No doubt, travelling alone as a woman does have its challenges. At least that is what I figured during this trip up north." "Why? Did you experience something bad?" he asked. "Well, some stalking here and there, and of course, previous night at the hostel wasn't cozy either." "Stalking at the hostel?" he asked with raised brows. "No, stalking was at McLeodganj, en route to Baksunag waterfall. The man, a driver of one of the tourist vehicles. Definitely wasn't a local. He saw I was alone and followed me the whole trek. I gave him a miss once I reached the waterfall. It was tricky, but I got into a crowd and vanished off his sight. It was really creepy. I had only heard of such things happen, but experiencing it in person was an awful feeling," she said. "Couldn't you complain to the cops?" he asked. "There were none around. Does the place even have a security system, I wonder? On my way to board the bus at 6 a.m., I saw a few people on the street, so inebriated, high on whatever, they could barely walk. Until I travelled through, I was under the misconception that the place was holy. Dharmshala monastery premises are sacred, but I didn't find anything holy about the rest of the district." "I lived there for a few weeks. I agree McLeodganj has a dark side to it, though it is a beautiful hill station." "What about the hostel?" "This wasn't my first day there. It is a budget stopover for many." "Why didn't you find it cozy?" he asked. "The dorm room gave me the chills all through the night. I couldn't sleep. The light came on by its own in the middle of the night a few times. I thought it was a figment of my imagination until it kept coming on again and again during the night. I barely slept." "I know you will say it was probably an electrical loose contact, but it was nothing less than a night out of a horror flick," she said. "And you say you are an atheist. How can you believe in paranormal when you are an atheist?" "Blame the ghost stories I heard growing up," she said. "The silence kept me awake, and the light coming on and off didn't help much either." Amused, he laughed out loud. She was sweet, much different from the women he had met. Time passed quickly with their meandering conversations. "Are you single?" he asked her out of the blue. She smiled. "Why? Does it make a difference?" she asked. "Just curious. I'm not trying to pry." "Well, that is exactly what you're doing." "You're prying, since you asked?" "Yes, I'm single." He smiled and rested his head back for a few minutes, staring at the pastel green roof of the bus. Aisha wondered what had just happened. He then turned to her and said, "It feels I've known you for an eternity. We have been speaking for hours like long-lost friends. Strange." "Maybe it is easier to open up to strangers you may never meet again," Aisha said. He stayed quiet as she spoke, looking into her dark brown eyes until she blushed. He ran his fingers through his wavy hair and sighed. "I lived in India for 3 years and have been wandering in different countries over the years. Now in my 40s, I believe it is time to be back home and settle. I'm on my way back to London," he said. "Settle?" she asked, wondering why he would feel unsettled. "I was married once, got divorced. I'm back in touch with my ex-wife. She has a boyfriend now, but I think she wants to give us a second shot. Mind you, she did take a huge alimony from me back then," he said. "Did I hear you right? You want to settle with your ex-wife who has a boyfriend whom she may leave for you, no guarantee, and she is someone who took heavy alimony from you on divorce, and you call this settling?" Aisha shook her head in disbelief. "Aren't we all settled in some way or the other? If wandering is a lifestyle to one, then wandering is settling too," she added. "I know what you mean, but we have both grown up since, and maybe things could be different this time." "Right one is possibly a myth," he said, trying to convince himself. The bus stopped. The conductor announced, "Pathankot." They waited their turn to alight the bus. The station was swamped with people. They collected their luggage in silence, both lost in thought. Their eyes locked as they turned to leave. His face flushed. "Goodbye," he said. "Good luck. Have a good journey back," she smiled, and walked away with a heavy heart. Two strangers, no longer strangers, with moments to cherish, parted wondering if they would ever meet again. Thank you so much for staying tuned till the end. This is the end of the second episode. And until I see you next, this is Indu signing off. See you on Thursday.